Welcome, everyone. I am John Ryan of SportsMemo.com. I have Dr. Chuck of SportsMemo with me. He is a baseball guru. In fact, I have two gurus with me. Dr. Chuck made over 200 units in profits last year, led SportsMemo by almost double the margin of the second place guy. And we have Jeff Michaels of JM Sports. And yes, he is the son of the Wager Talk legendary TNA guy, Ralph Michaels.
TNA.
Welcome to the show, guys. Just so you know out there, sportsmemo.com, if you want baseball picks, these are the two guys to go to. Dr. Chuck, as I mentioned last year, his record was astounding. And not to be outdone, Jeff is 20-3 with his 5% max bets in baseball. I did not stutter. I did not slobber over myself. It is 20-3. I don't have to say anything more. There's no sales pitch. You're losing out if you don't go get his picks for the weekend, and you can get them for $49 for all 3 days. All right, let's get right to it, guys. The first game up here is going to be the New York Yankees, and I'm starting to learn after yesterday's show that you should not even try to fade the New York Yankees in the least. They are a very, very good team, 32-13 on the season, 17-7 at home. Not to mention 15-6 on the road, 18-8 against the division. They are just swallowing up the very tough American League East. They are taking on their rival, who is in second place, the Tampa Bay Rays, in the second game of a 4-game series, with the Yankees taking the first one 4-1 last night. Pretty good pitching matchup tonight. Let's start with Dr. Chuck and see what he's got for a potential best bet in this matchup.
Yeah, pretty good pitching matchup, like you said. So you noticed on that graphic, the Yankees, like you said, it's hard to go against them, and they're wiping the floor with most everybody through 45 games. They got 32 wins, but you notice the graphic you showed, they're 500 on the run line. Now, that's having to win by 2, and that's home and away. But you're really only going to find, and JM and JR and Kevin and everybody else that's on this show, and Jesse, we're not interested in laying 150, 170, 180, 200, 220, the kind of things that you have to do. And so the Yankees are kind of in a different atmosphere with how they're going to be gauged as far as winning. I don't have the ROI for them on hand, but 32-13 probably is just about where they need to be. I'm not taking anything away from them, and they've been great, and they, have foiled me in a lot of systems and come out winning, and somehow, they continue to do so. Jeffrey Springs tonight is a stud, man, but Tyone's a stud too. Not only is Tyone have one of the best changeups in all of baseball, but he gets run support. And it's one of the things they were mentioning with Garrett Cole not getting it, and I think the Yankee lineup maybe not, well, Garrett Cole is getting it. Montgomery's not. But, when some of these big names don't get the run support, it's because the hitters think, it's going to be fine. He's going to keep them at bay. But they've been getting Tyone all the run support, and he's been keeping guys down. Both these guys have FIP that are under 2.5, which is pretty spectacular. The Yankees are a really amazing offense, as people know. They still stick with a couple of lefties in there, even when they face someone like Springs, which kind of gives us an advantage, I think. And if you want to make the Yankee offense look mediocre or average against left-handed pitching, especially on the road, is how they look average. They're exactly average in all the slash that I go by with the WRC and the WRAA and the WOBA. And so I think looking at that under, you're getting the Yankees, they score a lot of runs. The Rays are the team that are usually better than them, and you get that 7.5. And I know JM's going to talk about another AL East game with a total that's kind of funny later. But I like thinking that Tyone and Springs are going to mow through that first time through the lineup. And if that is 3 innings, you can probably survive and get yourself a 3.5. And you probably should be laying normal juice on a 3. So if you get that hook, I think that's pretty good value on the first 5.
Good stuff, Dr. Chuck. Do you have any concern with backing the Yankees in this position against a guy like Jeffrey Springs, who's 92-mile-an-hour fastball? He's left-handed, and his ground ball percentage is 45% versus fly ball 23. Keeps the ball down, and I'm wondering if that is going to work against the uppercut swinging Yankees. Any concerns with that?
The only thing I can say about the side is people probably look into this stuff and maybe they don't, and that's why we're here. You guys are probably going to talk about this as well, but the Yankees as a dog is confusing. And, they've only been a dog twice this season on the road. And normally you would think, wow, that's a spot. We talk a lot about the show. If a line just reeks, it's probably for a reason, and you want to go away from it because of how bad it reeks. But the 2 times they've been a road dog, they won those games 24-8 combined. So that didn't work out those 2 times. I doubt that's what they're going to do to Springs tonight, but it just kept me off of the side because I don't really want to be involved in just looking like an idiot tomorrow either way.
Well said. Well said. Let's move over to Jeff Michaels and see what he's got for this breakdown.
Yeah, there are some trends that are pushing me towards the Yankees, but you hit the nail on the head with Springs. Who knows? I mean, you said it too. The run support from New York with talent has been ridiculous. I mean, he's got a 3.45 ERA on the road, which isn't something to take away from. But the team's 3-0 when he starts on the road. They're 6-2 in his 8 starts overall this year, and he's just under 3 ERA. And they're 5-1. 6 of his starts have been against the division, and they're 5-1 in his starts against the division. So, they're 14-4 with him on the mound on the road against teams over 500. And, if you're looking for the whole game, Tampa had 3 2/3 innings out of the bullpen yesterday. Thompson went for 2/3 of an inning. Then Garza came in for 2 1/3 before Raley came in for another 2/3 of an inning. So they had a lot of work out of that bullpen yesterday. But, I was kind of surprised. The Yankees against lefties, they're 11-4. They're, some of their batting average, some of their stats aren't super impressive against the lefties, but they're still putting up 5.3 runs against lefties. And they're allowing the division to only hit 216 this year in the 26 games that they've played against that AL East. And, there's a lot of guys on that Tampa Bay team that haven't seen talent as much as some teams may hope. They only have 2 guys in their starting 9 that have seen him over 5 times in their career. And that's Arizona. Sorry, I always chop this one up. Arizona is batting 143. He's 1 for 7 with a walk. And Margot's batting 200. He's 2 for 10 with a walk. So those are the only 2 guys that have seen him over 5 times, and neither one of them have had much success against it. So I find myself leaning Yankees too, but we'll see what happens. They've been better in Tampa Bay against Tampa Bay than they have at home in the last 3 years. Tampa Bay's got a 22-13 edge in the last 3 years over the Yankees, but they're just 9-8 at home when taking on the Yankees too. So there's some question marks about taking them on at home.
That's good stuff there, Jeff. I'm already smelling Anthony Rizzo plus 430 prop bet to hit a home run off of the left-hander in that matchup. I'll have to look at that one a little bit closer. Let's move on to the second game, and this is a interesting game because of weather. And we have the Philadelphia Phillies traveling to Queens to take on the New York Mets at Citi Field. Game time 7:10. There's supposed to be thunderstorms in the area, but the percentages have been coming down from where they were this morning. They probably do get rain at some point in a stoppage of the game, but I'm kind of thinking they actually do get the game in. They are divisional rivals. They're only about 90 miles apart, so it'd be easy to reschedule. But that is something definitely to keep aware of, especially if you like the pitcher that is going for the Phillies tonight. And my understanding, it's not Zach Eflin. It's a guy that has started before, but I think I'll let you guys steal the thunder on who the pitcher is and whether you like the Mets or the Phillies. Let's start with Dr. Chuck on this matchup.
So it should be Bailey Falter getting his
Correct.
second spot start. He started in Seattle a couple weeks ago. He's been, you have to kind of mitigate your statistical view. He's crushed AAA since then. It was a mediocre start against Seattle. Coming from the left side, the Mets have a really solid offense. Like you said, it's not as much of a rain situation as they had at Truist all week against the Braves, but they're on travel, back-to-back road type situation with the Mets on rest and being at home, which is an angle that if we're just talking about how we're playing these games, I mean, look at this Mets line. it's almost been bled dry, honestly, at this point, when you could almost get $1.25 this morning, I think. But I like Carrasco a lot, and I'm not a fan of the Phillies doing things like going with Bailey Falter in what I suppose is a Girardi bullpen game. Girardi and the bullpen and the Phillies bullpen isn't anything to write home about, and it's not something that I would want to have to put up against with the Mets. They're coming into this with an even worse VMI than they had at Atlanta, which is bad to have a negative one there, but they also looked pretty good there in wins, I suppose. But I'm on the Mets. First 5 full game. I don't know what you want to do if you're having to lay 150. Maybe you lay the half run in the first 5, thinking Carrasco. He mixes it up a good bit, and I trust the Mets lineup more in this spot with the numbers, and specifically on the spot with the trends. And you can get a lot of that stuff when you read my play, because I've already posted the play for the full game and the first 5. But yeah, I like the Mets a lot. So I don't know how you guys are leaning on this, if JR is going to back his Bailey Falter fills or not.
Well, I can tell you this, that the Mets are not good against left-handed starters. However, to your point, we're not talking about a traditional starter here in Falter, because he went 4 1/3 in his last start against Seattle. The Phillies won that game 4-2, but Seattle's offense is nowhere close to being as strong as the Mets are. The Mets do have some right-handed bats that they can throw up there and give him some trouble, but he did throw 65 pitches. I understand where you're coming from with the bullpen. He's not going to pitch into the 7th. It's very unlikely that would happen. But the fact that they're 22-39 against left-handed pitchers, losing 26.54 units per unit wagered for a nasty 33% negative return on investment. Dr. Chuck, do you have any concerns with that, or is it more you discount it because he probably is not your traditional starter?
I think, and I'm trying to think. So at home they faced 5 lefty starters, and I think they were Rodon, Fried, Matz, Robbie Ray, and one other guy. And so, I mean, if you're talking, I don't even know if Bailey Falter would fall 150 spots below any of those guys. It's just
big names,
right? And so, sure, it's a divisional game and things like that, and you don't want to have to lay the 1.5 at home when you're only getting the 8 at bats, even if you are going to win at all. But yeah, I mean, just if you're taking into account, yes, the numbers have looked bad when they faced a lefty starter. I mean, that's not how I'm looking at Bailey Falter.
Fair enough. Let's move over to Jeff Michaels and see if he has any further nuggets to send our way to get us to the window.
Yeah, I'm going to just kind of touch on it too. What Dr. Chuck said, he threw it in there. That bullpen from Philly, nothing crazy to write home, but their ERA on the road is 4.76. They got almost a 5 ERA on the road. And this is just Bailey Falter's second start this year. This is just his 3rd career start too. And I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong too, but I believe, Dr. Chuck, we both have something to say about Carlos Carrasco and some weather with the last opportunity that we had. But the other thing that you tapped on was the rest with the Mets. Unbelievable. They're 14-1 in the last 15 games as a home favorite with 1 or more days of rest. And they're putting up 4.4 runs in those games, and they're allowing just 2.5 runs to the opposition. So, that rest has been something that has definitely benefited them. And they're 10-3 after coming back home after 6 or more road games. And those games too, they're holding opponents under 3 runs. So, I found myself siding with the Mets too. They have a 6-3 edge over the Phillies this year in the 9 games that they've played already. And it could be a long game for that Phillies bullpen with a lot of bats and, an offense for the Mets that's put up 6.4 runs per game, and they're hitting over 300 in the last 7 games, even though they're just 4-3. So coming off of back-to-back losses, 9-3 as a home favorite in the last 2 years. So I'm definitely leaning myself towards Carrasco too. Maybe sticking in that first 5 isn't a bad idea. Sticking with Carrasco, that half run, sounds like is definitely something to bite on. But I'm definitely leaning with the Mets here tonight. So sorry, John.
Hey, that's quite all right. As long as you're saying intelligent things, you can talk as long as you want, you know? So I think we broke that one down pretty well. Let's move on to the third and final game for the Friday card. This is taking place at Ring Central Coliseum at 9:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that means that the host is the worst offensive team in the Major League Baseball realm, and that is the Oakland Athletics. Moneyball is not working so far for Billy Beane. They are fourth in the American League West, and that is arguably the second toughest division in baseball, with the Angels playing as well as they are, and then, of course, the Houston Astros leading the division. Texas is a division rival. They're in third, playing much better than last year. They're only 3 games under 500. John Gray is on the hill, 1-2, 5.14 ERA. Makes me a little concerned backing them. But Cole Irwin is 2-2, an ERA of 3.21. Let's start with Jeff Michaels this time and see what he's got for us in this matchup.
You know, that first thing that stood out to me too is that John Gray ERA. But as you also said, that Oakland offense is something to talk about, not in a good way. Total's only 7, but I really find myself leading under the total in this. I mean, Irvin's 6 starts this year. They've gone under in 5 out of 6 of them, including 4 straight, and all 3 of his starts at home. The team's 3-13-1 over under in the last 2 years at home against Texas against lefties in the division. But you know, Texas has struggled for whatever reason on grass fields this year too. They're 3-12 over under on grass fields, and they're putting up just 3.1 runs. But it blew my mind with Oakland's offense. Starting pitchers who give up less than a half a home run a start. Oakland's 0-9 straight up, but they're putting up just 1.1 runs in those 9 games. And as a home dog, a plus 100 or higher, they've played 12 games. They're 1-11, and they're putting up just 1.8 runs. So they're putting up under 2 runs as a home dog, and they're putting up just barely over 1 run against starting pitchers that allow less than a half a home run a game. And then you got a Texas team that's 5-13 over under on the road this year, and they're just 2-11 on the road over under against teams that are allowing less than 4.4 runs on the year. And the month of May, they've gone under the total in 9 out of their 10 games on the road in May, including 8 straight on the road after allowing 2 or less runs in the game prior. So, and 5 out of the last 7, but none of those games have gone over. The only other 2 were pushes. And I don't really pay too much attention normally to the umpires behind the plate, but Phil Kuzzi's behind the plate tonight in this game. He's back 9 games behind the plate this year. 7 out of 9 of those have gone under the total. So even with a 7-game total, or a 7 total game, I'm taking the under in this one, I think.
Yeah, I can see why. You think the umpire, is he squeezing guys? Is that why the under is working, or is it just because of the anemic offenses that he may be umpiring for?
You know, batting average has been down for sure. So, you know, the production, I think, has just been down with it, whether it be a tighter strike zone or one that just the teams don't exactly agree with and haven't been able to, you know, put the bat on the ball. Whatever it's been, it really has limited the production in those games. I think, I don't have it on me, but I believe the average total or the average combined score in those games is only like 6 runs.
Wow. That is anemic. What are the chances, Dr. Chuck, that Oakland surprises us, almost like Boston did, scoring 16 runs in 2 of the last 3 games? And they put 7 or 8 on the board against the Rangers tonight. The Rangers play in Arlington, which that's the launch capital of the world when it gets hot in Texas. Tell us what you think.
Well, I no offense to you guys, but I was just back there getting some Benadryl for my hives that you gave me with all that ERA talk. John Gray's FIP is more than 2 points less than his ERA. and only one time has he really struggled. Now, he doesn't get to start at home much, so it's interesting. I like John Gray, and it hasn't worked out. You guys both mentioned it hasn't worked out, but I mean, let me read you off. I only talk about FIP, but and this is on an ERA scale. But let me read you off his FIPs, which has accumulated into like a 3.1, 2.8, 0.84, 2.14, 2.64, 3.37. And he had one bad start that was actually a bad start against the Mariners. This doesn't always work out if you don't get runs. Obviously, the Rangers would have to score for him for this stuff to matter. But, I just believe in, these are the kind of things that you use to go forward. You can't look back with an FIP and say, look how I lost this. But what you can do is look forward and say, well, he gave up 6 runs to the Angels, and so it looks gross. His FIP was less than 1. That just doesn't continue on. It's funny that you brought up the umpire at the end there, because I was almost going to talk about Rehack as the umpire in the previous game. But Phil Cuzzi, so not only is Phil Cuzzi like an under kind of a guy, but he's like a come with guy. And that's one of the things I talk about in my write-ups. He's a come with guy. The total's low, he goes low. The total's high, he goes high. He's even better when it's a 7 or a 7.5. I think his numbers in the last 3 seasons, he took that pandemic year off, but his numbers in the last 3 seasons, when it's a 7.5 or a 7, I think it's like 2 and 9, 2 overs, 9 unders. He's a come with guy. And so I like that too. They don't score for Irvin, which you mentioned. And I don't know if we should give him such a hard time for Billy Beane. This seems to be what he does. And I mean, he's running a team out there that is led by a Sheldon Noisy. I mean, let's be serious. He had Matt Olson, he had Matt Chapman, he had Marcus Semien, and Montez hasn't left yet. But they're doing pretty well. They're ahead of the Mariners somehow, which is kind of ridiculous. I am already on the Rangers' first 5. I know John loves this game too and is going to talk more about it. But I like, if you're looking at it, and Jam was basically getting there, and I thought maybe he was going to go there, I like the team total under on the A's.
Team total under in the A's?
Yeah.
Well, is it above 0?
It's 2.5. It probably makes you feel a little skeevy to, play that they're going to score 2 or less runs. But I think it's worth it. There's a couple of decent spots. It's not the dream VMI situation against John Gray to get that under, but it's a lot of contrarian value.
Real quick, just look at, you don't even have to look at the categories on that chart that we just had up there. Everything's going towards the Texas Rangers, even though they're on the road. Just about every single arrow, no matter the way you slice it, if you're going to make a bet in the game, it's definitely Texas. Dr. Chuck, real quick, for our listeners and our people that are just learning how to do sports betting with baseball, quickly describe FIP and what that means. And then what was the other one you said? I guess you said the weather stat or something.
VMI. Yeah, we've talked about VMI on here, and with pitching, I just don't use anything that you would find in the newspaper. I couldn't, if you put a gun to my head and asked me what Verlander's ERA was, I'd be dead. It's low. It's not. His FIP's higher, but FIP is just fielding independent pitching, and then it takes his home runs. And then there's XFIP, which is fielding independent pitching, and it takes the league average home run per fly ball, which, you're going to get these guys like a Kershaw, who is going to be higher. Verlander, we mentioned. They're going to be higher when they're not pounding it into the ground like a Dallas Keuchel. And so their home run per fly ball is going to be higher and inflate. Dallas Keuchel is going to have a lower one and deflate his numbers, and they're both going to be false. And so it helps to use things that are league average. There's also stat independent ERA, SIERA, XERA, and then similar to pitching versions of, like you were talking about with the Wobicon and XWobicon and XWOBA and things like that, where you can use them to look forward. And so what I use the FIP for, and with John Gray, is, people look at his last 2 starts. Oh, wow, he got hammered by the Angels. Well, the Angels' batting average on balls in play that game was 500. So every time the Angels made contact with the ball, they got on base every other time. And so that's not average, and 300 is average. And, it's just things the whole basis, if you just wanted one thing as to my umbrella of capping, is regression to the mean.
I love it. I feel like I was back at MIT listening to my professor there for a minute. No, it's good stuff. I'm not just kidding about that. So that we broke down all three games, and I think I'm gonna take the floor here. I'm gonna do the best bet for the show first, and that's because I'm the host. I can do whatever I want.
That's right.
But the Texas Rangers is my bet with John Gray, and the FIP that you mentioned is fully supportive of that. There's also two betting systems I'm going to mention. The first one is gone 28-12, 70% winning bets last 5 seasons. Requirements are to bet on road teams that are starting an average American League pitcher like John Gray, ERA between 4.70 and 5.70 on the season, and is facing a host. And that's about all the Oakland A's are, I think, offensively. They're a host that scored no more than 2 runs in their previous game. It is a struggling offensive team scoring 4.25 or fewer runs per game on the season. They certainly match those criteria. Again, that's gone 28-12 for 70% winners. And then the one that's on the chart, the graphic with my beautiful baseball glove there, bet on American League teams, the money line between 125 dog and minus 125 favorite. On base percentage of 310 or lower after allowing 2 or fewer runs in 2 consecutive games. As you can see, that's gone 65% winners the last 5 seasons. It's averaged a minus 105 favorite, which is very, very good. Very solid ROI of 38% over that 5 seasons. And that all points to my best bet for the show on the Texas Rangers over the hapless Oakland A's. Let's go over to Jeff Michaels and see what he's got for us tonight.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, so Dr. Chuck mentioned earlier for me, I'm going back to the AL East for my best bet. I got the under in that Boston-Baltimore game tonight. 10-run total for you. And Garrett Whitlock for starting on the mound for Boston. He's got 2 starts against the division so far. He's only gone 7 innings combined, but he hasn't given up an earned run against the division at all. And Boston on the year against the division is 3-12 over under on the season. They're putting up just 2.9 runs, and they're batting .216. So a 17-23 over under record on the year, but Baltimore's ahead of that at 17-27 over under, or excuse me, just behind that at 17-27 over under on the season. And they're putting up 3 runs on the road, and they're hitting just .213 away from home. So Baltimore's also, they're all 7 games where they've been a road dog of 125 to 175. They're 0-7 over under, and they're 7-17 on the season off a loss. So, Baltimore got the best of them last time, actually, but that just backs this up even more because with Cora as a manager, Boston's 3-12 over under revenging a loss as an away favorite. So they're putting up just 2.9 runs in those games, and Bradish hasn't been bad for Baltimore either. Sorry, Dr. Chair, I'll throw that ERA back in there for you. But on the road, his ERA is 2.57, but they're 1-3 in his starts this season over under. So, he, as what we've seen from Baltimore in previous years, they've been stepping up, but the run production in this game, I don't see it getting all the way up to that 10 run total.
Great job there, Jeff. I like that play too. I think I might even go to the window for some action on that under because Boston's coming off another double-digit barrage of scoring runs. So that look what happened 2 nights ago. They scored 1 run after scoring 16. And Major League Baseball teams that generally, when you get 15 or more runs, you want to immediately start looking for additional facts and information to support the under bet in the next game because it just doesn't. You just don't score 15 every single night, with the exception of maybe the Yankees or the Dodgers, but generally that's the case. Dr. Chuck, take it away and tell us what your best bet is, and we'll do promotions after this.
This was a fun day because I am always slow. You guys probably don't know this about me, but I'm always the last one to get my information in. Of course, I'm always the last one to get a best bet in. They're nagging me. Come on, get your stuff in here. So you both took a play that I was considering for this best bet, which is fun because talk about a head scratching total, right, Jeff? There's only been, so I love these numbers, and I just tweeted about it the other day. We're already 25%. We're pushing 30% of the Major League Baseball season being over already, and there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about the ball, or is it the ball, or what is it? And of course, the weather conditions aren't great at the beginning of the season. But there's only been 9 games with a 10 or higher total outside of Coors this entire season so far. Last year there were 195. So you guys can do quick math in your head that 9 times 4 is not 195. So, things are different. It's funny that these teams haven't even had this, and it doesn't, I can't make any sense of why it's a 10. So I love that. And I think the Rangers just hammered the A's. I'm falling back on a play that I had already put out on the Astros, which is a solid play. I just didn't know if I was going to give it out for free, but it's one of our top systems over the last couple of seasons. It's a 72% run line system. For clients that follow, I call it like, big chalk 60-40. You need a little bit of a sample size, so we don't use anything before May, but it's a 60+% win percentage team as a big favorite on the road against a 40 or less percentage winning team like the Mariners inside the division. Flexen has not had any success against the Astros. Verlander has slaughtered in this spot. The opponent has actually only scored 2 runs in the last 4 total games. And so I feel pretty comfortable with the Astros at least getting 2 or 3 runs, which maybe is all they need. But yeah, the system is 40-17 in this same spot with that 60-40. It does take into account Flexen being a subpar starter against a pretty good starter as the road favorite here. And I think the Astros cruise to this and get Verlander his run support pretty early on. And hopefully we have a really solid day with these plays.
Great breakdown. And in that game, I'll do a pizza bet on Chas McCormick to hit a home run for the Houston Astros at plus 530.
You love Chas.
I do. And it's time. I haven't done anything with him in a couple weeks. But at plus 530 against Flexen, and you triggered it by saying Flexen, I thought right away, bang, there's the matchup we want to nail. And hopefully that comes through, because that would be like a lot more pizzas for me to eat over the Memorial Day weekend, wouldn't it? So we're at the end of the show, but before I let you guys go, Jeff, what do you have special going on at sportsmemo.com other than the fact that for $49 you can get any one of the 3 of us or anybody at SportsMemo or wagertalk.com? That's tonight, Saturday, Sunday for $49. It doesn't get any better than that. Our 5%ers alone cost $39. So do yourself a favor. Just cut down on the IPAs for a couple of days, and you'll have enough money to buy this, and you'll benefit with sports betting intelligence that you just won't believe. Take it away, Jeff.
Yeah, it's a bargain, and I got some big red circles on my board for tomorrow. So, I got my best bet up on Sports Memo for you guys today for half price, actually. So pretty good deal out there for you today on my page. Take a look at it tomorrow. And, like they said, Dr. Chuck mentioned it, but 25% through the season and 25% through the season and into last year, Dr. Chuck was number 1 and I was right there behind him too. So we've been going on a pretty hot run through baseball, and I'm excited to see what the rest of the season holds beyond this exciting weekend.
Is that a subliminal message that you're on the dog for the weekend with your big play?
Right? Yeah, they're giving out my hints.
It sounds like a couple dogs, actually. Maybe we'll parlay them. Dr. Chuck, what do you got going on?
We have a really solid Memorial Day deal here with all the baseball plays. We are, as I mentioned a lot, we are high volume. We have cut it back a little bit from the, thousands of plays per season, trying to be like Ace. But we're still rolling. We were up over 100 units halfway to last season. We've dropped back down to 90, but got a full card today, full weekend card. You get that all plays now through the All-Star break for half price right now. And like I said, it's an unbelievable deal. It's $149. That's the price of like a couple of days of plays. And you're going to get, John talks about this all the time. It's like a quarter a play, maybe 5 cents a play, unfortunately, for any amount of my plays. Just quickly, because I saw there was a comment, wanted to talk about the Blue Jays Angels game. Obviously, we're not going to fit that in here, but I like Manoah over the case.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Well, I got, I humbly say that I'm hitting 72% against the spread in the NBA, and the winning just doesn't seem to want to quit. And I don't plan on it quitting anytime soon. I do have a 4%er up for Game 6 tonight, the Heat and the Celtics. What else do I have? I will have a 5%er over the weekend in Major League Baseball. I'm 17-5 the last 365 days with 5% max bets. 10% max bets in the NBA are a perfect 3-0. And the way things are shaping up right now, there could be one on Tuesday for Game 1 of the final. So stay tuned for that. And hockey even is 13-5 in the NHL playoffs. So we're clicking on all cylinders, and it's been a lot of fun for sure. So make sure you get over there. $49, 3 days. You can get all three of us for what is almost the regular cost for just one of us. And that brings us to the end of the show, unfortunately. But the chat room's been good again. Lots of people listening and taking all this in. We had 3 very good best bets. I think we go at least 2-1, if not 3-0. Feel good about all of them. So everybody have a great Memorial Day weekend holiday. We'll be back Monday with another edition of the Full Count Baseball Show. And until then, remember 2 things, especially when drinking and eating too much over the holidays. Bet with your head, never over it, and may all the wins be yours.